This podcast is brought to you by Funkaway Extreme Odor Eliminator. Welcome to Podhead Parent. We are lucky enough to have an amazing and motivational FaceTime with our guest a couple of months ago. And that was back when we first started out. And now we're honored to have the opportunity to interview Andrew DeAngelo today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Nice to be with you.
I wanted to just jump in and give the perfect intro. I went on your website. If no one has been on it, you need to get on there and check out what Andrew has done.
There's a lot. It's almost like overwhelming. It's like, I don't know where to start or say or
right.
What not to say.
So Andrew is one of the few people to have owned and operated cannabis companies in the legacy, medical, and adult use markets on both coasts of the United States. As an activist for the last 35 years, Andrew helped legalize medical and adult use cannabis in California and Washington, D.C. Andrew co-founded the Last Prisoner Project with his brother Steve in 2019. LPP's mission is to free and to reintegrate all cannabis prisoners into mainstream society. Since its inception in 2019, LPP has successfully freed and re-entered the formerly incarcerated into society and has provided resources for education, housing, and professional development to their constituents. LPP is one of the more successful social justice nonprofits doing this work. Andrew is a contributor to Forbes magazine, where he writes about cannabis, business, and culture. He also has written for Playboy, MJ Biz Daily, Green Entrepreneur, Cannabis Now, Honeysuckle Magazine, and so many others. Thank you so much for being here with us. We know you are a pro in the cannabis field, but you have so many more layers to you, obviously. With you being one of the trailblazers to this, with your journey, where are you right now? What have you been up to at this moment?
Well, thanks for asking. I am doing three main things with my life and my post-Harborside life. Many of your listeners might know me and my brother Steve from our time with Harborside. That's our both medical and adult use dispensaries that we own that you referred to a moment ago.
That's where I met you on Weed Wars.
Yes, Weed Wars, the first reality TV show.
Yeah.
About legal cannabis. So now I'm helping other entrepreneurs build their cannabis dispensaries, their cannabis companies as a consultant and a strategic advisor. I like doing that work because it enables me to build more than one company at a time. So I have more of an impact in a greater geographical area for the industry than I do just building one company in one state. And that's how I make my living. I am also chairperson of the board of directors of Last Prisoner Project. And that takes up about 25% of my time. It's a lot. It's a volunteer position, but as you mentioned, we're trying to get people out of prison and who've been working with this plant in one way or another for a long time, and it's slow going. I must say that work is really hard, and they're locking them up faster than we can get them out, unfortunately, especially at the federal level. But we carry on. We continue on. The community, your listeners, so many people have been supportive. You guys. It's just been amazing. The community's really responded to the mission and the call. And so as long as we're able to get everybody to keep supporting LPP, we're going to keep taking that energy and trying to get people out of prison. So I do that. And as you mentioned, I try to write and speak and create and contribute to cannabis pop culture and thought leadership as much as I can. That I wish I could do a lot more of that work than I'm actually able to have time to do, as I'm sure we all are. But those are basically the three things I do in my life right now. And you know, it's a very challenging moment for the cannabis industry. The legal cannabis industry is a very tough moment right now. And so it's important that we all stick together and try, especially those of us that are not big companies or big MSOs or just grinding it out on the grassroots level.
Right.
It's important we stick together right now. It's a tough time.
Right. That was a big thing. It was really nice. What was that? Almost 7 months ago when we first started. Yeah, it went by really fast. You spoke to us and you talked to us about, honoring our legacy growers and, being a part of, the education piece of the cannabis culture rather than, the fun pop culture, Instagram. That's not what we're trying to do. And that's not what you're completely trying to do. So I appreciate, someone like you who is able to give that messaging from the front end of talking to these prisoners who are, in jail still or going in or coming out and getting into the world now, which is definitely a transition, which I'm sure, Derek has transitioned from, even being from overseas in the military and then coming home. So it's great to be able to have a network of people with the Last Prisoner Project that are there for them, when they get out as well.
We saw it firsthand. So we became friends actually with Mario Ramos over the last probably year or so. So I met him standing outside. I think I asked him for a lighter. Like, it was just the most random conversation, but we've grown and seen him grown over the last year, and to see the support that we actually were hanging out with them at BizCon, to see the support that they have, one, getting out of there, and then when they come out of there, to have a job, to have the support system, to have a phone, to have somewhere to go. It was great to see, because like in the military, like she's saying, you get out of the military and you're out. Like, good luck, see you later. You're probably going to end up killing yourself. That's the sad truth of it. And they don't really seem to care, but to see that care and support getting out was very nice to see.
I do have one question for you that's kind of out of the box from the beginning of it all, because I know, this cannabis thing isn't new to you. You've been smoking for quite some time, right?
Yes, I've been smoking weed now almost 40 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Awesome.
So do you remember your first time?
Oh, sure. You never forget your first time.
So what was that like? I have to ask. We always ask this question.
Because of my older brother, Steve, I was introduced at a pretty young age. And when I was, 13 or 14, maybe a little older, for some reason, I took some edibles, some weed brownies that my brother made. I can't remember what motivated that to happen, but I did, and it was not like he shoved them down my throat.
It was your moment, yeah.
Yeah, I just said yes at that moment, and it was it was a rainy night, and my brother was going out and doing a bunch of rounds for his weed business in those days, and he gave me these brownies, and I had a great experience, and then I didn't really take cannabis for a few years because I was an athlete after that first experience, and the first experience was more just it was a kind of a psychedelic experience, and it was really there was a lot of euphoria and just experiencing something new that I had not experienced before, and I was pretty young, so it really, my blood was like spring water, so I really felt the medicine, and had a great experience, but didn't take it for a few years later, and then I got hurt when I was an athlete. My dream to be a professional athlete was over when I was in high school, and then I started taking cannabis more regularly to deal with physical and really psychic pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. And that's when all the light bulbs went off. And, this was 1983 or whatever. And I realized that there's something to this that needs more of my attention. And so my brother was already knee deep in activism and cannabis trading and all kinds of things. So I was lucky. It was easy for me to plug into something that was already pretty well developed with my brother, and then just contribute from there and learn from there. And, the rest is hipstery, as we say. So that was my start.
Now, with your brother, it started you getting into the legal end of things when he actually got incarcerated, correct?
Well, now you're going back even before my first experiences with cannabis. Yes, my brother's first arrest was when he was 18, I was 9. So Steve's about 10 years older than me. So, and
so you
it
had a
was
firsthand
possession. We're hearing a lot about this with Joe Biden. So it was for possession. It was a federal charge because he was going through an airport, and they locked him up for about 4 or 5 months, and then he had to go on probation, all that kind of stuff. And this is for half a joint or something ridiculously small.
Oh my gosh!
And I was 9 years old. We had to go visit him. My parents took me to the jail to visit my brother because, that's what families do when you have people locked up. Is you go visit them, and you bring the kids, and you try to bring people, right? Because when you're locked up, having visitors is super important. You should go visit people that you love that are locked up as much as you can. It helps. Nothing helps a prisoner more than that, other than maybe getting a letter or using the phone. But these are the things that allow people to do their time without completely losing their minds or, like you said, harming themselves maybe. So it's really important. So we went as a family, and I was 9 years old, and when you're 9 years old, they still pat you down. They still search you. They still make you go through all the protocols that everybody else has to go through. And all that had a pretty big impact on me. It was a scary, intimidating, awful experience. And I felt bad for my brother, and he was in there, and we had to talk on the phone through the bar. In those days, they didn't have the glass. They just had bars, and mesh, a lot of mesh. And you had the phone because, I don't know, there was a lot of noise, so you couldn't really hear anybody. Yeah. And plus they wanted to record everything, I guess. So, and it was this little country jail in the middle of nowhere, and we had to drive for hours and hours and hours to get there. And my parents were divorced, so it was a very awkward, ride to the jail because my mom couldn't drive for that long a period of time by herself. And so, it was one of those very weird, awkward, terrible experiences you have a little kid that's really plants an implant, really makes an impression on your mind and your heart and your spirit. And so
it's a trauma.
Oh yeah. And, all your neighbors know about it, and they're asking you about it, and all your friends at school are like, oh, your brother's in jail, and blah, 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 blah. And it makes you feel very small.
And it's a lot to deal with too at that age. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with, right? So that was before, that was just the effects of the drug war and the war on cannabis that had on our family. And I guess it was probably inevitable that I would grow up to be who I am, from that experience because, it was so traumatic. And I knew my brother to be a good person before he went to prison, and all the people at the prison made him seem like a bad person because, they're lecturing you about don't end up like your brother, and you don't want to end up in here, and blah, 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 all this stuff that the cops, tell you. And I had to be alone with the cops because my parents went and visited him before I did because there was only so much room in the visitor booth that you had to stand in. And so anyhow, or they didn't let us, I forget, they probably didn't let us all in there together at the same time.
Right.
That would have been too humane. But so I was alone with these jailers, and they were lecturing me and telling me about my brother being so bad. And I knew that my brother was good. And so it seemed like a lie to me. It seemed like they were lying. They were totally lying to me. And in fact, as I got older, I realized they were lying to me. And certainly when I started smoking weed, I was like, this is definitely a lie. Are you kidding?
Yeah, right.
So
that was just based on generational issues then.
Yeah, it had a huge impact on my life going to visit my brother in jail. You're right.
And that's pretty much what attracted you into the cannabis industry and working with others, especially now with the Last Prisoner Project, and you being a part of that with your brother. With all of that trauma and, those things happening, you still succeeded quite well through college. I actually read a quote online, and you stated, "I proceeded to have a stellar college experience in both academics and weed. I was an honor student, served in the student senate all 4 years." And I realized this probably isn't one of your most, famous quotes of any means, but it definitely stuck out to me because it was a full explanation of how you can be successful and get through things in life, any traumas clearly, or, and learn from it, work through it, and create something, with it. You gave zero fucks about what anybody thought about you, as well as your brother, Steve. And I feel like that, was something you grew into from what you're talking about and what we're saying from what happened in your past. But with that, I just want to say or ask, was there a time where you felt you needed to hide your use?
Oh, sure. The way it was in the 1980s when I was in high school and college was you had to communicate with other stoners and people who loved cannabis in code. So you couldn't have this says Last Prisoner Project on it. You couldn't have something with a weed leaf on it that you wore. Because if you had something with a weed leaf on it that you wore in 1985, 1986, they'd search you. And they'd search your locker, they search your car, they stop you on the street and search you. And so it was a much different time. It was really dangerous. So yeah, I used to go into the woods with my friends, pretty deep into the woods, the suburban woods, and
sounds like my childhood too. Yeah, I did it on a bridge out in the woods. Yep.
Yeah, we hid our youth. We went into the woods. We went where adults wouldn't go. And in those days, we had a lot more freedom to roam around as kids than you do now, I think. But we were roaming around all over the place and trying to find any dark alley or woods or anywhere we wouldn't get caught. But if you got caught, the hammer came down on you pretty hard in those days. So you had to work really hard not to get caught. And because I'd been trained by my older brother, Steve, not to get caught, I was walking for a ways into the woods before I take my weed out and smoke it, because I didn't want to get caught. And then in college, I sold weed through the dorms, and that was a harrowing experience, right? Because I would lose my scholarship, I'd get kicked out of school, all this terrible thing would happen. So I had to devise some very elaborate systems to make sure that I could do that in a safe way in the dorms. So yeah, we had to hide our use, and we would have little codes with each other. Are you going to the Grateful Dead are coming into town. Are you going to the show? Yeah, I'm going to the show. Oh, okay. That means you smoke weed. Let's go smoke a joint. What kind of music do you listen to? I like Bob Marley. Oh, that means you smoke weed. Let's go smoke a joint. And there were little codes like that. You might have a little hemp bracelet on. In the 90s, they were very popular. If you were a stoner, you'd have a little hemp necklace.
I was a little kid and had one.
Yeah, right. They got really big for a while. Yeah. Everybody had one, but in the beginning, they were a little code and let people know, hey, This is hemp. I smoke weed. Let's go smoke weed. And it was great in the sense that it brought us together. in ways that are very unique because you had to establish trust with people very quickly because you were breaking the law together and you could get in serious trouble together. And so you had to trust that you weren't going to snitch each other out, or, you know, you were going to be smart and you weren't going to like walk into your parents' house with, you know, a bud stuck onto your shirt or something. And you know, that's how it was in some respects, it was kind of cool in those days because you had that instant bond and trust with people once you figured out that you were both stoners and you could smoke a joint. But, you know, sometimes you went for a long time. I mean, I would know someone 6 months, sometimes 12 months, a year before I realized that they smoked weed and I smoked weed. And wow, I've known you all this time. We could have been smoking weed together, and you were too afraid to tell me you smoked weed. Right. And I was too afraid to tell, and we didn't have the codes because I don't know, you were I was in the theater department and you were in the business department or whatever.
Right.
And the codes just weren't present in the same way. And so we didn't hook up as stoners together. So it was very different. And yes, we definitely hit our use. We if you were a trader or grower, you always had some other kind of straight job to, you know, make sure you're filing your taxes and that, you know, you had a good story. If anybody, you know, asked you any questions in an interrogation room, you could say, oh yeah, I deliver pizzas. Here's my paycheck stubs. And you had to do all those kind of things, right? Whereas, yeah, I deliver pizzas, but you know, that's just the cover story for, you know, I'm dealing weed or I'm growing weed, and that's how I'm really making money. The pizza's just, you know, keeps me in.
I used to call weed pizza for years. That's what I used to call weed. Pizza. I used to text my guy, like, I need some pizza. That was the code word for quite some time. It actually still is, but it's funny because you say like people coming out of the woodworks, like with what we're doing with parents and veterans and stuff, like how many parents just message us like, hey man, I've been a stoner for like 5 years. No one knows. I'm like, guys, like you got to talk about this. There's so many people that, you know, consume, or they think they don't smoke, but they do because they don't actually smoke it. Like, so right. I'm going to put my father on the spot here. We took him out the other night. We take him to his first dispensary and he walks in and he's talking. He goes, yeah, he goes, so where do I get some weed? I go, why are you whispering? They sell cannabis here. This is what they do. Right. Now he's almost 60. So he's in that stigma of, he's on the line of like, okay, I get it, but I don't want anybody to know about it. But it's educating the people that, you know, there's so many people that use it that you would have no clue. Professionals, doctors, athletes. I mean, everybody. It's crazy.
Right, because it truly brings a different person out of us, right? If we are in tune with who we are, we're able to engage ourselves a little differently when we are under the influence of cannabis. And people have always seen it as being a negative thing, but it's shown that there are so many successful people that do consume cannabis on the regular, daily, and a lot of people don't even know about it.
And then they find out and they're like, well, that's not true. No, it is true. It's just the ignorance behind it. They don't want to believe it. That's the tough part with the education. It's like, whether you agree with it or not, if you want to use it or not, that's cool. But like kids nowadays are growing up in legal weed. You have to talk to your children. If you don't, you're going to have that lazy stoner kid that's hiding from you. That's going to be unproductive. Like you have to talk to your kids. It's a different world we're growing up in.
You know, or if you don't talk to your kids and educate them, they may find themselves in a situation that they don't know how to react to.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, with the fentanyl and all this going around right now, to not talk about these things, you know, there are a lot of parents that have gone to a lot of funerals the last few years, and they will tell you that I should have talked more about it.
Absolutely.
And so it's really good work that you're doing, because those two groups, parents and veterans, they are in such need of the medicine and
high stress and
so much stigma and so much fear in those communities to come forward. You're afraid you're going to lose your kids, that Child Protective Services, all these downstream effects that the average person doesn't even think about when you're talking about legalization, and the lawmakers don't protect parents after legalization. All these little things that people don't think of that you have to do. So it's on a policy level and also on a cultural level, right? So that people will feel comfortable coming out of the closet. And because most of their neighbors and people they admire and respect are in the closet too, or a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really the first step of anybody being active with cannabis, and activists. And I don't like to use that word just because it seems like, you're burning down the house in the streets, and that's not really what you're doing.
No.
What activists do is they activate people, and they educate people, and they get people to
engage,
cast their votes a little differently, perhaps, or engage within their communities a little differently, perhaps, or be more tolerant of a weed shop down the street. So these are things that our first act of activism is coming out of the closet, saying, hey, this is part of my life, and it should be part of yours too, and here's why. Or it could be part of yours too, or maybe it should be part of yours too, and here's why. Why it helped me, and why I'm talking about this right now. And that's the first step. Once people start doing that, then your uncles and your aunts and your parents and grandparents and the people around the dinner table, and even the kids, even the teenagers, they'll start to get real information that's not misinformation, and that's not lies, perhaps, and that makes people feel more comfortable that maybe I can consider something like cannabis if I should get cancer, or if I should give birth to a child with epilepsy, or if I should, get chronic pain because you're aging, right? And 20% of all adults over the age of 50 have chronic pain. And that's I don't know. That's probably 50 million people right there.
I'm way under 50, and I have chronic pain every day just from the military. And they feed you pills instead of cannabis. I went to the VA real quick the other day for different things, but they literally labeled me with a cannabis use disorder. I'm like, are we going here now? On my record, I'm actually proud of it. I'll take that. I don't care. Because the gentleman that was next to me was snorting fentanyl for 7 days. So why we were in the same area, not really sure. And then I proceeded to talk to this doctor. And I said, Doc, can I ask you a question? I go, how many people in this hospital are withdrawing from cannabis? I was being an asshole. And she goes, I go, oh, nobody? Oh, that's weird. Okay. I said, am I itching? Am I sweating? Am I fiending? Am I throwing up? Am I withdrawing? She didn't want to have the conversation anymore and politely left the room. So it's like,
well, we've been under this huge taboo. I mean, I remember learning about cannabis during DARE class in in elementary school in 5th grade. And, that's something that we want to implement and push, is just like we pushed the taboo now of what cannabis is or was to everybody, we need to now show that it's not that. It helps people medicinally. And then if you even go further down, you can use it with your hemp products. I know, you work very closely with a brand, and being able to use it for your jeans or your clothing, or house. I saw you with pot holders, or you can build a house with it. There's so much more to this plant. It's not just consuming, it's implementing it in our lifestyle in every single way.
So true. And your experience at the VA is just a sad story, right? Where you're surrounded by people that are on their way to death with this fentanyl, and you're given this marijuana use disorder, I don't know, label or tag, whatever it is, and I don't know if that's going to have an impact on you or not.
Hopefully not. We'll find out very shortly here, but it's they don't even care. I
imagine that it does have negative impacts on some vets. And it's a shame, because Cannabis is the gateway out of fentanyl. Cannabis is the gateway out of heroin, out of these harder drugs. And not 100% of every single case, but a lot of people. And I've seen it for 20 years. I've been working with these communities and seen time and time again people come up to me and say, it was the weed that got me off the pills. Okay. And no one wants to be on pills. No one wants to be strung out on fentanyl. These are conditions and sicknesses that people have. They're in pain of one kind or another: physical pain, emotional pain, psychic pain. And people don't deal with pain. They will kill their pain, or they will manage their pain, hopefully manage their pain. And this is where we want things like meditation, like exercise, like physical therapy, and yes, like cannabis and plant medicines, to play a role in getting people well, right? And getting people's pain addressed in a good way, in a way that's not gonna kill them, right? Because, I relapsed and I took some fentanyl that I thought was something else, and now I'm dead. And my family has to bury me, and my friends have to bury me. And it's awful, it's awful what's going on out there. And so it's really sad to hear the VA being like that after all this time, and we've done a lot of education with the VA. I'm sure you've done your own education with the VA. It's not like they haven't heard the education. It's not like the science is not available to them. They're just being dicks. Okay. I mean, that's just the only way to describe it. And our veterans deserve a lot better, and everyone talks about vets deserving all the devotion that they do deserve from us. And then they don't get it, and then they get treated like this. And I don't know, it pisses me off as an American, and as someone who works with these communities. And I mean, there could be all kinds of cannabis healing with vets, psychedelic healing with vets. It could all be operational right now. There's no reason it couldn't be. It's just ignorance and politics.
Took the words right out of my mouth, plus more. But yeah, it's like, and I told them for years, because I got hooked on pills a long time ago. I was going to 3 different doctors. But, through my records of 10, 12 years at the VA, do you think there is any label or comment in there that I told them I was addicted to opioids? Please do not give me it anymore. There's no opioid use disorder anywhere in my record. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But I got a cannabis use disorder, so I'll stick with that and roll with that. But it's pathetic. It really is. And it needs to change. Like you're saying, it can change. They just, blind eye. They don't care. It's just the ignorance to it. It's sad.
I've heard
it will change one day.
Changes from region to region. Did you find it got better when you moved, or was it basically the same?
The care?
Well, just how they view cannabis in Nevada versus somewhere else.
Yeah, it's funny. Like out here, I mean, everybody smokes weed, so they don't really care. But, they're looking to pin something on you. And it's like, you're like, oh, you smoke weed? I'm like, yeah, like everybody, probably your employees that work here too. And, they're just looking to tag you with stuff. Like when I went in there, they made me, she's like, well, how's your pain? I go, I'm always in pain. I'm like, I don't know, it's a 3. And she was making me give her a specific area that hurt so she could prescribe me muscle relaxers. I was like, are you trying to make me tell you something hurts? Because this is not okay. And I told her what I do for a living. I said, actually educate veterans on how not to get fucked over at the VA and stories that have happened to me. So it's like, God, there's so much that needs to change there. Eventually it's going to, they're not going to have a choice, but I think the veterans are going to be a big, big name in the push to get this legalized as far as in the VA or anything.
I see a lot of activism happening in the veteran community right now. Leaders like you are holding the flag and leading the charge, and it's great because change needs to occur there really, really badly.
Too many people dying way too young, too many kids left behind, too many wives, families. It's got to stop. It's from 22 a day now to 44 a day statistically. It's like, what other flag do you need to go up in the air? Like, hello. I mean, it's wild.
That's so sad. I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't know it was that high now.
Oh yeah. It's up to 22 for 44 a day now. So crazy.
I did want to ask you a couple more questions, kind of break it up a little bit, but in a smoking circle, what's your biggest pet peeve?
That's a good one.
Oh, I'm pretty forgiving in a smoking circle.
You're already high, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty forgiving. One of the pet peeves I have right now is when people aren't mindful that we're still in a COVID reality, and so they get a little reckless with how they're consuming or sharing.
Or even preparing. Oh my God. The ways that you can prepare now, there's so many other ways besides using your saliva and just getting all in there.
I roll my own and smoke my own.
Right.
Yeah, there's just different ways of holding a joint so it doesn't touch your mouth. And, so that's one of my pet peeves because, the COVID is still happening. We're still in this respiratory, sickness reality that we're living in. So but I'm pretty forgiving, man. And once you're in a circle, I'm so happy that you're there and that we're all
I love that
together. That if you bogart the joint or you forget or it goes out or the cherry comes out or whatever, it's like cool. It's all right.
I love that. That's how I am. I'm like, whatever. Who cares? This one, he's like,
my pet peeve's the burner that just sits
he
there.
hates.
I'm going. Pass it. Can you pass it? Just away.
Where I'm like, I'll get there, man. It'll happen. You'll get it. We'll all get it. We'll all share it.
Gentle reminders. I am a believer in gentle reminders.
Just a little. Hey, you okay over there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna just sit there and not say anything.
Yeah, you got to say something. It's like, that's some good weed. Can you not let it burn that long, please? Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
Or no, what do you say that I do is when half of it gets...
Oh, she canoes it every time.
I don't mean to.
She prefers bongs.
I like bong rips.
So when she smokes a blunt or a joint, she whacks on it. I go, you can't do that. I go, it's like a cigar. Take it a little slow, nice and smooth, turn it. Like she just wants to take the thing right down. And then she, the whole thing runs. And it's...
Well, that's my second question. What's your favorite way to consume?
Oh, wow. It's changed over the years, but I still love smoking hash. So that's really
old school.
That's old school.
I still love really good flower too. But old school water hash, I love. Finger hash is really my favorite. Finger hash is when you're harvesting weed and the sticky stuff gets on your fingers and you rub it and it's hash basically. And I love finger hash. And I just love good, clean, regenerative, sun-grown cannabis. That's really what I'm into, and that's what I seek out. Luckily, here in California, I'm able to get that pretty much year-round. But in a lot of places, it's hard. It's harder to get the sun-grown. But that's what I love to consume. I also take a lot of edibles because I'm, I can't inhale as much cannabis at my age as I could, 40 years ago when I first started. So I take a lot of capsules, basically whole plant capsules.
I hear you. Sometimes our son, so we're the pothead parents, likes to make a cameo appearance. So he just ran out the door. So Missy's grabbing him. But the consumption, like you're saying, I'm a blunt guy. I like to roll my own. I like joints, but we're trying to educate on our end. Like myself, I started taking edibles. I'm like, hey, I want to stop smoking. I just don't want to physically smoke. They kill my stomach. I don't know what it is, but like the oil or whatever in my stomach, it's like a 4 or 5 day thing. It's horrible. Right. And I tried it a couple times where I'm like, okay, maybe it was just a bad batch or from a different state, but no, it's just, what do they call that? See something. It's like where the oil in your stomach, people get sick from it.
Yeah, no, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon that people get a little bit of that. People that are sensitive to it. Yeah, that's not uncommon. But luckily, that does not happen to me.
Yeah, that's good. I'm jealous. I wish I could eat them. I can't. It literally.
I consume it in every way possible. I enjoy it.
She'll drink it, smoke it, eat it. She doesn't care.
Yeah.
She'll do all of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much like that too. But I mean, there's nothing like, inhaling really good hash or really good flower. There's, it's kind of like, it's the closest thing I guess we would have to a wine experience because
Exactly.
we have a lot of terpenes and flavonoids like wine has,
Yeah.
and so
Right.
it's so that's what I love, and I love small growers. I love craft cannabis. I love hearing all the stories about small batch production, and that's, I think, the way of the future for people
sure.
who really love high quality cannabis. Yeah.
We're actually moving. So officially, you're actually the first person to know this, but we're moving back to Buffalo. And the reason I'm bringing this up, we just found this out 2 days ago. We're actually moving in like a week. So the legalization in New York is there, but it's not. No one has a clue what is going on in Buffalo. But there are some small batch growers there that, I mean, some of the stuff they're growing, the smell of it, I want to make into an air freshener. It's like there's so much good weed there that these guys are afraid to come to the surface and be like, hey, I've been growing in Buffalo or New York for the last like 15, 20 years. Like, I could easily do this. I already have the process. But like, what do you see with New York being like, I mean, not the city, but like we're in Western New York, Buffalo. Like, what do you see being a hurdle for them to get over?
Well, it's going to be licensing, regulation, and taxes, and competing with the underground market. I mean, that's going to be, you've got those growers are probably, if their weed's really good, their biggest problem is getting busted, right? So, the weed itself has probably got a good market and good prices, and they make a decent living, and they're probably not getting super rich because they're small, right? So they don't get caught, but they live a good upper middle class life, and my advice would be to stay there for a minute.
Yeah, right. Well, that's good advice because they're going to watch this too. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, because the New York program is the first mover advantage is going to require a lot of capital.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just going to need a shit ton of money, man, to capitalize on the first mover advantage in New York. But the second movers and the third movers in a place like Buffalo can do really well, man. And so let the MSOs open their shops and get their first wave or whatever,
True.
But a town like Buffalo is perfectly positioned to have what I call regional entrepreneurs like you. Your ambitions are more than just having one shop or being a mom and pop, right? You have a little bit bigger ambition than that. But you don't want a global domination. You don't want to be like True Leave or anything like that. Yeah. And so Buffalo's a really good place, and Western New York and Albany and outside the 5 boroughs, I think is a good place to be. Everyone's going to be zigging to the 5 boroughs. Zagging outside of the 5 boroughs is, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's going to be very active outside of the 5 boroughs too, and there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurial activity. But how many people really know what they're doing, and how many people know what they don't know, right? So that they call somebody like me who does know, and to help them, build their business. So, there's a lot of, I think, opportunity actually outside of the 5 boroughs. And I like the micro business license in New York. I think people can make that work. I like the social equity, provisions. At least on paper, they're pretty good.
All right.
Of course, they're rolling out real clumsy, and I suspect they'll continue to roll out clumsy. But the biggest problem in New York is going to be the same problem we've had in California. It's just, will the government and the regulators create a framework that allows the legal licensed market to compete with the unregulated, unlicensed market? And if the answer is no, then the legal market's only going to get about 25% of the overall market.
Need to work it together.
Yeah, I mean, no one's cracked the code on the framework to get everybody in. and New York's no exception. They're having terrible problems in the 5 boroughs, and with the gray market, and Eric Adams and a lot of people want to crack down on it, and they are cracking down on it, and they are, shutting people down and doing smash and grabs, and they might start prosecuting people. So, you're starting to see this Prohibition 2.0 sort of emerge in the 5 boroughs a little bit, and they're going to the big companies are going to lobby for more enforcement against unlicensed operators. So it's going to be hard in New York for a little while here. All that activity, all those conflicts, all those competing interests, all the learning that needs to happen. It's going to be kind of rough waters for a while. But if you want to build something authentic and real, like you're talking about, in a place like Buffalo, by all means, you can do it. I mean, the opportunity is there. There are people smoking weed in Buffalo. They need
all over
dispensaries. They need consumption lounges. They want that. They want a nice community center they can go to. And be, you have harsh winters there. I could see consumption lounges doing really well. In a place like Buffalo, get people out of the cold weather, get them with other people, get them warm, get them carrying cannabis,
stoned,
together, hot chocolate, coffee drinks, hopefully all that stuff. And you can start to imagine it. So I think I think it's a good move actually for you to go back there. I was kind of surprised you left there in the first place, but I think it's smart to go back there. Huge opportunities, I think.
It was really nice to be able to plant some seeds out here because we're not West Coast people. We didn't know anybody out from the West Coast. We don't, so it was really great to be able to meet some awesome people, talk about, more than just Buffalo and New York in general, so it was great to get out.
To get to see the dispensaries, to see the processes, because we're going to come back there and people, they still message us, hey, how do I go to a dispensary? Where do I go? Like, we're just going to hold a class of like, hey, we're a pretend dispensary. Come on in. Like you're saying, there's so much opportunity there. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really smart of you to do that. Get into a legal state where you can really experience what's happening, right?
Right.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things that you would do differently, right?
Exactly.
And it's like when you get in the legal market, there's really you quickly learn there's 2 choices. You can create a turn and burn experience and get as many people into your dispensary and out as quickly as you can and upsell them and do all this stuff and don't invest a lot of money in a customer experience or decor or, just get them in, get them out, turn and burn. And people make money doing that. And then there's, the other vision is to invest a little bit more in the experience and service. Yeah, and the customers and the products and maybe have
the reason of why you're doing this, what we're doing this for, more meaning to it than just the money or the monetary end of it.
And it's probably going to be smaller, but it's probably going to be more embedded in the community that it's in. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun to go
It's a different type of success.
Yeah, it's a different type of thing. And
when this gets big, we want you in Buffalo. Chicken wings, pizza, weed.
We'll bring it. We'll make it happen. That's our next goal. Next one is you come out to Buffalo and we make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I remember when we first, there were a couple other people reached out from Buffalo, not just you guys. I wasn't able to. It's still so early. So none of those folks were able to do anything quite yet. But
we're making it happen. I put that in the universe. It's happening.
I was really thinking of you guys in Buffalo when the snowstorms came through, and I was, I'm sure the media made it seem a lot more worse than it actually was. But
no, it was
definitely
my parents, our families was still there. It was Buffalo's been through quite a bit this past year between, the shooting at Tops that happened in, what was it, May?
Yeah.
And then, this storm. They're cleaning up messes. Families are hurting in so many different ways. So it's
It was wild.
It was a wild ride that they've been through. That it was hard to watch from afar. I'll say that.
Being stuck out here knowing that your hometown was tough to not be able to do anything.
It was hard for me, and I was just watching on TV. So yeah. But
another question for you, because I'm full of them. One more. This is it. I promise.
Okay.
If you're only allowed to change one thing in the cannabis industry tomorrow, and it happens, what would it be? I know you got a lot under your belt.
It's a really great question. I think, I'm not going to say public policy or taxes or regulation or anything like that. I'm always wanting a lot. Unity is the thing we're missing. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're within the stoner community or the medical community or the investor community or the finance community or the big MSOs, or we're all one big industry community, really. And we're not getting along very good. The unity's not there. That's why we haven't been able to improve the frameworks. That's why we haven't been able to make more progress at places like the VA. If we had more unity, we could make a lot of change pretty quickly. We could write our own laws. We could write our own taxes. This is a pay-to-play political system. I mean, everybody knows that, right? It's pretty clear. So if you don't pay, you won't get to play, and you will get played. And that's what's happening. And so I would change unity. If we had more unity, we could get everybody out of prison. We could fix the problem. We could just do so much a lot faster than we're able to do now. And, so people are still building moats instead of tearing down walls. And so that's what I would change overnight if I could. More unity amongst us.
It's like the seeds and the roots of the trees of, the cannabis industry are out. We got to get to the stump. We got to
stop trimming the branches.
We got to get to the stump. Yeah. So, we can get to the fruit of the tree, the beauty of all of this. And that's when it all comes together. I love it.
Yeah, it's hard.
You're a true inspiration. You motivated us in the beginning. You continue to motivate us as we watch you day to day. We just want to thank you so much for everything that you do and what you've done for us and coming on today and talking to us and telling us about your story. And, I appreciate it so much.
Thank you very much. We know you're more than busy, enough going on, and we appreciate this more than you'll know. So.
Well, this is my favorite thing to do in the whole world, and all the parents and vets out there listening, stay strong, stay active, and keep engaging with everybody around you. And it'll be frustrating at times, and it'll be other times where it'll be really uplifting because you'll make some progress. And it's just day by day, and together we'll all get there.
Amen.
Amen. Appreciate that so much. Thank you again.
Our next podcast will be from Buffalo with you.
Right? All right.
Whether it's virtual or not.
All right.
All right. Thank you
very
so much.
It just hit stop. You're good. It'll count down.